Hello and welcome to One Called Mama. I am your host, Samantha, and we are excited to be here today. I have my special guest, Lynette Horton, with me. I told you guys that when I came back for this season, I would have a very special interview for you, and I'm delivering on the promise. We are delivering on the promise, and I'm very excited for you to get to know my new friend. So before we jump into her story, before we get into all of this that we're going to share today, I would really love for Lynette to just share a little bit about herself. Hi, Lynette. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful, Sam. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell the listeners about you.
Okay, I am in my early 60s. Um, I'm vision impaired. I have two kids and a wonderful husband. My mom is still alive, and we do spend a lot of time together.
Oh,
Um, I am an animal lover at heart. I do like to cook. I volunteer with the prison ministry program, and I'm an entrepreneur. And I really enjoy just being able to give back and seeing how I can help others as I've been able to help myself.
I love that. And that's actually how we met because when we were doing that event last December, I met you and you kind of came over and introduced yourself to me. We're actually across from each other, which was really cool. And you're like, "Hey, what do you do?" And I told you, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is such a godsend." So it was really neat. You actually, when I said, "Hey, you could be on the show," at first you were like, "I don't know about that," but you messaged me. I think it was like a month or two later, and I was like, "Oh, she messaged me! Yay!" So the Lord convinced you, I think, which was always I'm always loving it when God changes people's hearts about being on the show. You're not the first who's told me no initially and then changed their minds. So I'm really thankful that you're here. Um, and today's topic is redemption.
Yes.
And our Father is just the master of redeeming all things. And your story is such a testament to that. And so I really want to just jump right in from wherever you want to start. And then we'll just go with the conversation.
Okay, that sounds good. Um, yeah, so even just going back to that moment when we met, I was just like, of course you are. Of course you do. Of course it is. And I said no, and then I could just hear, what are you telling her no for? This is exactly what I've been wanting you to do. This is what we've been practicing for this, right? And so but even knowing that I was supposed to say yes, even knowing that all the of courses, right? We still have those moments where we want to reconfirm, triple confirm, quadruple confirm, right? Did you really mean it that? Did you really mean her? All those things. And I say that because, it doesn't matter where we are in our journey. When we walk with Jesus, we still, even I've been in my journey with him for 30 years now. Um, we still question it at times, and we still get a little fearful at times, Lord. And in my ministry, it's, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And I have to remind myself of that in day-to-day stuff, not just when I'm doing the ministry program.
Mhm.
So going back to, I grew up, I grew up in the church. I was, Louisiana, we were in the church all the time, I think, until about the fourth grade. And then I got out. So my seeds were planted
Mhm.
and had a lot of junk, right, come up. But um, I got into drugs and I got into wrong crowds. And I really didn't, I would pray silly stuff. And I'm sure anyone out there that's been in my shoes will be able to understand this. Lord, just give me 3 hours of sleep. Just give me 4 hours. I need to get to work in the morning. Yes, I made a mistake. And he's like, yeah, you've been making a mistake, Laura, for like, couple of years now. It's what he's probably up there thinking. Um, and all the things that go with that. But I had a corporate job. I had several, but when I moved to California, I had one that I had some freedoms. And unfortunately for me, I was able to use, and I
Mm.
did it without a hitch. Um, and I would use on property. I had over 1 million square feet of office space that I was kind of oversaw the facilities. And so I knew where all the corners were. I knew where all the restrooms that no one went to, right? So I didn't have a problem on the days that and it got to that point over time. But as I continued, I knew things were really getting bad, and it was hard. It was my first marriage, and I did not want to get divorced. I didn't want to be that person. And I went to God and I prayed. And I finally one night I woke up and or I don't even know if I ever went to sleep, but I got in the living room or I remember it vividly because it was a big window, but I looked out and I could see Mary sitting on the donkey. Don't ask me what that really meant, but she was traveling. And I took that, and my dog's was like sitting on the donkey behind her. But I took it as it's time to move, right? She's moving. She was traveling right to Bethlehem. And I getting chills. So I remember that. And I was like, God saying, it's okay. You have to survive. We need you to survive, right? And so I finally made the decision, and I pretty much just walked out with the clothes on my back. Everything that I moved from California to Texas was through FedEx or UPS, I guess it was back then. A few years later, I ended up getting pregnant. I was separated for about 6 months from my husband. Um, as I continued to work and tried to live in California, it just didn't work. The person that I was dating in California came to Texas, and that was the shocker. I wasn't so I wasn't expecting it. I didn't understand the whole dynamics of it, but I was so torn inside that I was allowing things to occur. Um, and I was being used, but didn't really completely understand that at the time. Um, and then I got pregnant, and I told him that I was pregnant, and he said, "Oh, well, we need to get married." And I was like, no, no, this is God telling me I need to get my act together. This is not God saying we need to combine forces. And I told him, the best thing you could do is get your life together as well and try to be a good dad. Um, I had been wanting a child, so I knew I was going to be a single mom, and I was cool with that. Um, but I didn't realize the severity of my addiction. Right before I found out I was pregnant, I agreed to sell drugs. He gave them to me. So he was visiting family here in Texas. He went back home to California. He shipped them to me literally without any money at all. He knew me very well from California. So here's the setup. I'm pregnant, and now I have a ton of free drugs at my disposal. Totally the enemy, as you can understand. But again, not understanding the magnitude of my addiction at the time. Um, I thought, this is a piece of cake. I'm going to make the money. I'm going to, do the things, get rid of this, and I'm going to go ahead and have a family, and life's going to be peachy keen, right? Um, until I got into that. And then it was trying to I had to sell my inventory, if you will, to make the money back because I owed this person money.
Mhm.
The problem was is that I, being an addict, I had it sitting in front of me to use.
Mm.
And of course, I had friends, but I couldn't. I was so torn inside. I was beating myself up. I can't tell anybody what I'm doing, right? there was no one I could talk to in my head, no one that was going to not ridicule me, belittle me. And back then, you're talking 1995. So drugs was still, go to NA, do your things, do your rehab. It didn't work, all this stuff back then. It was different than it is now. So I kept counting the months. I counted the months and I was like, okay, I remembered in high school. So I come from a small high school and I was like, I remember girls that were 3, 4, 5 months pregnant right before they were even starting to show, before they even, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was pregnant, that kind of thing, right? So I was like, okay, well, they ended up having normal babies. I'm telling myself all this stuff, right? They had normal babies, so I'm good until about month 5. And I only said that as each month went by. Like in month 2, I was like, okay, I'm good to month 3. Okay, I'm good a month. And finally, I got to a point where I was like, okay, things are fixing to go south quick. And it wasn't for me, it was for a voice that couldn't speak.
Mm.
And I literally, I was in the middle of using, and I looked at myself in the mirror. I was just like, I can't do this another minute. And I was staying with my mother, and she has a stained glass window. And I looked out the window and I'm like, I cannot do this without you. I have to have help. And I don't know where else to go. And I remember yelling at him. I got on my knees and I was like, fine, is this what you want? I was just like, okay, I'm on my knees, right? I was just like, I was standing up doing my things and I stood there. I don't know if I was expecting some like major like lightning bolts. I had no clue because I didn't know. I didn't know anything about being saved, the sinner's prayer, and I knew nothing. I knew I had a Jesus. That was it. And I knew the only way life was going to be any kind of normal was with him helping me because there was no one else. And I had been through childhood experiences. I'm an only child. So when chaos and craziness happened in my family, he was my brother, literally, my father, literally, he was everything. Um, so that's where I knew to go. So I got up and I said, okay, first things first, we got to figure out, I got to get rid of this. I need baby clothes. I need this. I need that. I got to get rid of this stuff and I need some money.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is what, and he gave me a plan. Um, he gave me a good plan. And the problem with the plan is that it entailed, he told me, he's like, the people that you've been selling your little quantities, and I don't know if I'm going into too much detail, but I was selling small quantities to make the most money. I mean, that's the way it works, right? And that's what I was trying to do. And he's like, stop that. He's like, go, tell me what to do. Go to those people. They want it. Do this. And we're selling it to those people. And I'm like, Lord, but they were starting to look bad. I mean, I didn't inject, I will say that, but I know some of the people that I sold to did, and I could see them changing. I felt bad. I was just like, I can't. And he goes, you let me deal with that.
Mm.
I'm trying to get rid of what you can't have this on you and near you. Get rid of it. So I followed him. I took it to the person and I said, here. And I don't know if he was arrested and picked up on the way home. That's between him and God. But I always think about these things like like on the way home he got stopped and he got arrested and he got put in jail and he got clean because hey, he didn't have them. I don't know what happened. Fell out the window and it all blew away. I know God had a plan, right? But my plan was put this money in your pocket and get rid of the drugs. And that's what we did. And I was able to get the things that I needed for my baby. And it was wonderful. She was clean. I did have a girl. I thought I was having a boy, so I was a little surprised at that. But I had a little girl, and she just turned 30. But the, here I am pregnant, going through hormone crazy and drug rehab. So I'm going through all those things, the withdrawals and the stuff. And I really think God helped spare me in some of that regard. Because I don't really remember, having a lot of like I've had pharmaceuticals that I've come off of, and I've gone through that kind of a rehab before, and I don't remember doing that with my pregnancy. So I really feel like God just totally washed me and fixed me in that regard. Um, but after I had her, I came home. We had yellow pages still back then, and I was going through the yellow pages and I was looking for churches. And because of certain denominations I knew about, but not a lot. So I investigated them. What was your doctrines? What were your thises? What were your that's? I wanted to get her started in a foundation like my mom and dad had done for me. Um, but also I knew I needed an environment where I could start growing. And I didn't want to be hypocritical, if you will, or just all the stuff, right? And I didn't want to go somewhere that I was going to regret later. So I just kind of said, Lord, what about this church or what about that church? And we found a place. I had her baptized at 6 months. I got baptized sooner. And this is crazy. I will tell you. I remember leaving for church one day, and I didn't know that I was getting baptized the day you walked down the aisle. I thought I didn't know how it worked. Um, but my mom was watching her, and I went to church, and today was the day, right? It was winter. I remember taking my coat off. I was waiting, it's and I was nervous the whole sermon, just nervous as all get out. Am I doing the right thing? I'm older, right? I'm 32 at this point. So I'm like, adults beside me, are they going to look at me differently because I am going down to be saved now? Again, remember, I don't go to church, so I don't know that there's adults that go down during altar call. I don't know any of this stuff. So for me, yeah, I felt very on the outside, very apprehensive. And when it came, he said, you made the first altar call. And I stood there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. Right. And then I picked up my coat. I'm like, I can't do this today. I just can't. Um, and then he said, okay, I know he must have known, right? There's somebody else out there. I'm sure God said, no, you're going to just keep calling it girl, because there's somebody else out here. We're getting her today. Um, but I remember at one point, I'm thinking that's going to be the last time. He's not going to say it again. And I threw my coat down and I went to pull my leg. And Samantha, I kid you not, I felt like I had a steel cuff around my ankle. I felt like I had a 1,000,000-pound weight. The enemy was trying so hard to pull me to stay. And I remember yanking my foot. So no wonder I didn't like trip over the shoes, because I remember it vividly to this day, yanking on my foot, like, move. It's like my foot would not move.
That's crazy.
And then I just almost like tumbled down the aisle to get to the front. And it was me and another young lady, and we were both baptized right then and there on the spot. I was like, okay, well, that's a good thing, because I don't know if I had to come back, I don't know what happened. He's probably thinking the same thing. He's like, okay, you're going to have this. I later got married in that church.
Oh,
Yep, she was my flower girl, but um, it was a neat experience. Just that whole what I went through with him, what I went through for him and because of him. I love him. And when I talk about him, I will go back to that moment. And just like when I go to see and talk with the girls in the prison, and we can talk about that later if you'd like, but I tell them, if you can know him the way I know him, you will never want for anything, and you will always be happy no matter where you are, because you'll know you're where you're supposed to be. He's going to take care of you no matter what. We all have to pay for what we've done. I mean, I did too, right? I know I've been in situations where people say, I wish I'd have had something negative happen in my life
Mm.
to enjoy the relationship with Jesus like some unbelievers have when they were finally brought to Christ. And I didn't, I understood it, but over the years, I've really thought, yeah, I wish you could have too, because I bet my relationship, I'm not saying it's stronger, better, anything of that nature, but I'm saying that it's a story. I mean, and it is a crazy, mixed up, amazing story. When I was first started going to the church, still going back to that, I didn't know about the church people or,
Mm.
so I signed up to teach first grade Sunday school. And my reasoning behind that was because I didn't want to go to a Sunday school class and feel out of place. I didn't know. I thought they're gonna, we're gonna do roundtable. All I knew to go by was classroom stuff, and the teacher asking, Lynette, what do you think? And I don't know what I think. I don't know. I don't remember these stuff. And other than Adam and Eve, a couple of stories that, just are embedded in your brain, I didn't. And so I thought, let's go back to first grade. Let me remember those stories. Let me teach those stories as I learned them and build my competence until I could go back to Sunday school and be with adults and in an adult environment. And it was really cool. I love teaching Sunday school, actually. And I did it for many years, actually. It was something that I really enjoyed. But being able to talk to, it's like, oh, we're going to talk about Paul today. Oh, we're going to talk. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. I got to that point and it was cool. It was really, really cool. That's how I was saved. I recently was trying to help someone, and they just couldn't get their sobriety. And I had heard about CR. And so I went to a CR group one night at a church in at Waxahachie,
Yeah.
at the Avenue,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
So I went in there, and I was gonna. My idea was to talk to the girl that I was kind of mentoring, and then talk to her mom, because south of you they had a meeting, a CR meeting place. Okay, and at the church where I used to do my Bible studies and stuff. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to get it all together, talk to them about it. Of course, that God's always got a different plan. So I went in there and I sat down, and it was celebration day. Of course it is.
Of course.
And I'm sitting there, and that we're celebrating the today, just that you're here today. And I remember that. I remember going in those environments once and twice. Um, and I clapped. And then as it became the 1 week, the 30-day, whatever, I started realizing, wow, I could still remember that 30-day mark, that it's been 6 months mark. Um, and so I was just so excited to be able to cheer them on. And I was like, Lord, this is so cool that you're allowing me an opportunity to share in their excitement, but just to feel their joy and to feel that joy that I didn't get when mine were very private um, moments of celebration, because again, I didn't tell anybody, right? And then it said, hey, who wants to come up and get a chip? And this is my first time. This is not my people. And it's like, if there's anyone, again, if there's anyone out there that would like to come up that has earned a chip, and I could hear Jesus saying, go get it. And I'm like, but Lord, I I didn't do this program. And he goes, you did a program of me. And he said, you and I did recovery together, and you've earned that chip, girl. And I said, are you sure? Are you sure you're sure? Are you really, really sure? And of course, they're just okay. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, we have one more. And I'm like, see, it was. And finally, I said, okay. So, and I'm pretty outspoken and I'm much an extrovert. But in an environment like that, I had to have my cane with me. And so I was a little vulnerable, but I did. I went down there. And of course, at this point, I'm nearly in tears just because God's like congratulating me or thanking me or saying, you did it. You did it. Good girl. I'm proud of you and all those things. And I said, a 30, do you have a 30 here? And they look up at me and they, 30 years? And I said, yeah. I said, I'm visiting, but I've my 30 years is now. To be honest, it was last month, to be really honest. And I have it and I keep it. I lost it. And I've been praying that God would let me find it. And he let me find it recently. It's got the three X's on it. It's gold. I keep it in my wallet because I know when I pay for things, on occasion it'll fall out. And I've had this happen twice and it falls out. And I went, oh, I said, my chip wants to come and meet you. And they say, what? And I said, well, this is my 30-year chip. And I said, I'm pretty proud of it, but it only needs to come out when apparently you might need a prayer. And I've had both people tell me, wow, my dad, the last one was a girl in the makeup shop. My dad is really struggling with his sobriety. And I was like, girlfriend, your dad can't be much younger than me. I'm saying? Like, he's got to be in his 50s at least. She's 25, 30. And I was like, well, we're just going to say a quick prayer and I'm going to pray for him if you'll tell me his name. So I went off and I prayed just a quick prayer because there's other people checking out and I don't want to invade. It happened and I put it back and I keep it. But that's because I asked God, what am I going to do with this? What do you want me to do with it? And he's like, share it. Share it.
Yep.
So here we are.
Here we are. Here we are. And it's a beautiful thing. And just full disclaimer to all of you listening, I didn't really know the full extent of Lynette's story. I mean, she had told me obviously like the high points, right? We've talked. We obviously talked. But I didn't know like all of this. And it's so wow. It's amazing. And I think what I love the most about this topic about redemption, when the Lord redeems these things in our lives, I love how things that are so broken can become beautiful because we can hear, it sounds funny to say, wow, your story is beautiful. It is. And it was also very painful. It was also filled with a lot of brokenness, a lot of moments of doubt, a lot of moments of fear and uncertainty. And I mean, watching you talk, I mean, there were moments where you got emotional. It's been 30 years. And it still gets to you. And so that's painful, but it's beautiful. And these are the things that matter because these experiences, they shape us. Like you said, people who haven't had like really difficult experiences, maybe they've just, I feel like I'm one of those people that have just been really blessed. I had a good upbringing. I never really faced anything like I would consider like a trial that was really difficult. I faced difficult things in life, but I think a lot of us can take our faith for granted. We can take these things that we have, just everyday things, we can take them for granted. And meeting people like Lynette who they didn't have the luxury. They didn't have these things always. And so they really do treasure. And so I don't know, it just makes me think, how can we come to a place in our relationship with the Lord where we become truly grateful, where we kind of just start back at one, right? Like, and really, like, how do I be grateful for this? And the funny thing is, when you think about it, most of the time it's like just asking God. Because he's the source of everything. And so it's like, I always thought it was funny. It was like, I don't like going to church. Well, ask God to help you to like going to church. He already knows you don't like it. Okay. I don't like praying. Well, ask God to help you to like praying or to understand it. And so ask him to rediscover a love for him and this gratitude for this relationship, because oftentimes I think people don't really like their faith or their because they don't really have a relationship with the Lord. It's not an in and out, day in and day out thing. It's become stagnant. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get stagnant sometimes
Oh
even
yeah.
now. I get happy and everything is going great. And, I'm like thankful, but it's just like, hey, thanks for all the stuff, but it's not a gratitudinal thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a um, thanks thanks in the way that it should be presented.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a thank you and let's keep going.
Yeah.
Um, I'm enjoying this ride and I'm not ready to get on the water yet. Um, so yeah, I mean, we do that, but that's whether you're new or old in a season. What gets me, I think, most is that will he really be able to help me? And that's sometimes what I feel like in a couple of the people I've mentored. That's one of the things that they really question about themselves or question about um, Jesus. And, would he really like me? I mean, is he really like that? Do you really talk to him that way? Do you really? Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I've done my what are you thinkings? When he told me I was going to do prison ministry, I spewed it out in the middle of a church service and went home and I was like, okay, that was not me. What are you thinking? I have never been arrested. That's one thing I hadn't done. I haven't what are you doing? And he's like, I got this. I got this. You are going to be monumental. You have a story to tell. Honestly, that was in like 98, 99, maybe 2000.
Whoa. So when did you actually start prison ministry?
I started prison ministry in 2016. So back when it first happened, when I listened to the couple talking at church, um, we had to go through, it's called Kairos, it's prison ministry, it's KPMI, but you had to go through the Emmaus walk at the time. Because the Emmaus walk is geared, it's the same setup as what the 3-day weekend is for Kairos inside, and a lot of Kairos outside too. But so I did my Emmaus walk and it was amazing. And I recommend that for anybody that wants to strengthen their relationship and really understand. I did not know, and not everybody does them the same, but we did a foot washing and I didn't even know I didn't know what that was.
Mm.
And when we were heading into the chapel, somebody's like, oh, foot washing. And I'm thinking, foot washing? Okay, okay. And I'm like, Lord, what is this? But to this day, and I'll give you a side note here in a second, but to this day, I still remember the woman that washed my feet. And that was in '07, I think.
Mm.
And recently, I've just moved back to where that church was, where that sponsored my Emmaus walk. And in talking to the music minister, she was there helping the music minister that day. And I went up to her, I was like, hi, Janelle. And she looked at me and she goes, hi. She goes, I recognize you, but now remember, I've left this church in 2003 or 2004. So she hasn't seen me in a very long time.
Right.
And she's like, you look vaguely remember. And I'm Lynette, and I was like, I know you don't remember, and I know it probably, don't feel bad that I do, but I have to tell you how I will always remember you. And I told her, and I said, because you washed my feet. She goes, really? And I'm like, but didn't know that even was in the Bible. So to have that moment and to sit there, and I was like, talking to God the whole time, like, you did this for all the disciples, Lord? Really? I mean, because I'm learning all of this as we're doing. I was just like, so for me, it was huge, huge. And so, yes, I will always remember that girl. So fast forward, I did not do anything. I lived out. It was far. Um, I lived up in Savannah, which is out on 380 between Denton and McKinney,
Mm.
up in, so it's just about 2 hours from you.
Right.
Um, but I don't drive, so it was difficult to get to places where the prison system was, or to a Kairos training even. And so I did have to put that on the back burner.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I ended up getting married and moved within that same neighborhood. And I got a disease. It's called Guillain-Barré. It is a virus that attacks your nervous system. It
Mm.
is very rare, fairly rare anyway, I'll say. It's becoming a little more 10 years later. Um, but it attacked my nervous system. And by the time I got to the doctor, I didn't even have reflexes. Was put in the hospital for 5 days. And you would have thought that based on my history, that I would have been like, oh, so God, hey, what's going on? Why am I here in the hospital? And what is this? What is this?
Mm.
It didn't. My daughter was starting drill team and I was going to miss her first game.
Mm.
And my kids were going into school. It was the first week of school. And I worked in the school and literally everything just so that's where my mind, that's where everything. I was so far removed from, Lord, are you trying to do something with me here? What's going on? And I went through the motions, did all the things, came home, got better, went back to work. Everything was fine. I ended up with fibromyalgia
Mm.
and some other things, pain and blah, blah, blah. 2 years later, no, yes, 12, 13, 15, 16. She graduated in 14. So this would have been 2012. So a few years later, I kept getting the letter from the doctor. You need to go get your mammogram. You need to go get your mammogram. And finally, I looked up. God, this tells you, right? I looked down at the letter and I looked at it. I was okay. I am going to get the mammogram. Yes, sir. And I knew, right? I had my head focused on the right. Get up there. Of course, I have something. So we do the biopsy, and I had cancer. And my response to the doctor, and to my husband was, I told you I was getting new boobs when I turned 50 because I had two kids. I had, yes, all the things, right? And we're among friends. So, I mean, I was not in a place, I was geographically not in an area I wanted to be anymore. And I told him, I said, when I turn 50, I'm going to look at doing something different. And I had a ton of back pain, and I knew some of that was because of that.
Right.
And so when she told me, I was just like, bingo. I knew I was getting new boobs. That's just, and she started laughing, he started laughing. And that's pretty much how my breast cancer went for a bit. I mean, I had the pity parties and this stuff, but I pretty much made the enemy leave. I told him, you're not a part of this. And my mom and my husband were obviously just a little bit, as anybody would, a little concerned or whatever. And I said, you know what? This is between me and God.
Mm.
I went to him and I said, okay, what's up? You gave me that and I didn't listen, right? The GB. And I was like, okay, you have my full attention now. And he's like, well, finally. And it didn't have to come to that. I probably would have found it. I don't know. We don't, you never know those
You
things.
know.
But he's like, I'm glad, I'm glad. And he said, I'm like, what's up? And he goes, prison ministry. That's it. That's all I heard. Prison ministry, just like that. And I went, seriously? And he went, hmm. There was just like a little vibe that I felt, but it was more of a, you knew, and I've given you tons of time to figure this out. You can do this now. And so, my goodness, I got on the phone to the county, to the chaplain at the county, and I said, do y'all have a volunteer program? Well, of course we do. Of course you do. Can I have that package, please? And then I went to Kairos and I said, hey, do y'all have something in my area? Sure, we do. It's right down there. Of course you do. So, man, I signed up for both and I did a weekly Bible study at the county jail, which, as hard as it was on me, I loved every minute of it. Um, I had to take the bus from where I was into town, and sometimes they would pick a bus. It's just shuttle, right? It's like the community transit thing. Um, Sometimes I would have to wait for all the riders. So even though I went in from 12:30 to 2, sometimes I would get there at 11:30, sometimes 12, sometimes 10:30, depending on what their schedule was. Sometimes they picked me up right at 2 o'clock and I went straight home. Sometimes I was picked up at 2:30 and then I made the rounds with them and didn't get home till 4 o'clock. I brought a lunch. I always brought a lunch, but the people at the facility where I was, Denton County Jail, allowed me to come in with my lunch. They kept it behind at the guard station for me because they knew. But I had 10 to 15, not 10 to 15, 15 to 20 probably ladies at my Bible studies.
Wow.
Um, we would do fun crossword puzzles. We would do fun stuff. We would sing songs. I did videos. Their favorite thing was the Joyce Meyer, the Battlefield of the Mind. And
Yeah.
what I had to do for that is I took the study guide. They could only have two pieces of paper, front and back, to keep. So I had to cut and paste those study material to where they would fit on two pieces of paper each week and give them. And what I had noticed, it was a surprise to me, but I had a girl come up to me and she goes, I finished my homework. And I went, do what? And I looked down and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud. All the things that you're supposed to say, but I was like, wow, that is so cool. I mean, I was just blown away. But I told my story a couple of times. And one of the things that they really said is, you get us. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, one, I get you. And two, I'm not going to put up with your BS, right? Because I'm not one of those fluff buckets that comes in off the street with, that mm-mm, mm-mm. And so they would say things, and have had opportunities to have one-on-ones. And one time, I'll never forget her. She was getting ready to go to state. She had brought herself in, and she knew she was ready to do her time, and blah blah blah. But she said, I'm really scared. And I said, of course you are. But when there's 1 to 2 inmates in with me, the guard doesn't have to allow me to stay. But she allowed, and many of the guards were that way, that they were just nice enough. They knew that whatever that woman needed, they were gonna let her stay. So God put it on their heart, let her stay. Maybe someone else will come. I don't know. But she and I talked it through. And we talked through, her rekindling of her relationship with Christ and how she wanted to do her time. And at the time, I didn't know about going inside, or even I didn't know much about a state. I didn't know that much about it. I just knew that she was going somewhere that didn't sound pleasant. And I would have been scared too. But I love those moments. I love the moments where I would, say, hey, I'm not going to tell you my story, but these people know it. And if you want to know about me, fine, ask them. They'll tell you. But I've been in your shoes and I've been everything but arrested. But I'll talk it straight, right? And I didn't mince words. I mean, people were like, I can't wait, Brian, go get a cigarette. And I'm like, you take that first hit and you're gonna be right back where you are. Just from a cigarette. And I said, you know what? Are you willing to take that chance? I
Right.
don't know. I don't know, but are you willing to say, I'll be back?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be back because you don't know. And when for me, I gave up my music. Um, and I wasn't into Christian music because it was kind of slow and boring back then because I was a hard rock listener. But I found jazz music was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to jazz and that soft vibe stuff. And then, of course, I learned to listen to kids stuff and Disney movie songs and all those fun things. I listened to Disney radio all the time, but it beat the music I came from because their songs, even now, 30 years later, I love the song, but I have to stay in a zone because otherwise I will go back into a place and it's just like, man, maybe I no, I know I couldn't and I never would, but I feel those feelings
Right.
of that party mode, right? If you
Right.
will. I tell them that you're gonna have to change the people you hang out with. You're
Mhm.
gonna have to change probably the clothes you wear. I mean, believe it or not, even the clothes, because everything for me, everything had a connection
Yes.
to my old way of life.
Mhm.
And I literally had to die
Mhm.
and change everything about me. And the coming back to where I could listen to, you know, alternative rock or even rock music, it was years and years and years in the making. So I don't mince words with people when they think that they can do it or do it on their terms because they need to know what they're going to be set up for. And even the ones that are inside now, and I just started going inside about 2 years ago, and I love them to death. I don't know. I've chosen not to know their what they did because I've been in a place. I mean, obviously, I just told you I've been in places that I was messed up. I mean, I could have done something stupid and, regretted it. So these people did too. And that's okay. So I don't want to know what crazy you did. I just like knowing the person that I've met, having a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
And so that's how I keep that kind of separated. We'll talk once in a while about something that happened on the outside or something like that. And I was like, girl, it's so different now. I said, but it's probably a good thing because you don't want to go back to what you came from.
No.
They're like, you're probably right. And I'm like, even now, I mean, I know I've heard of stories like the two that I met with my chip. They 50 and 60-year-olds still party and do things that are killing their bodies,
Mhm.
taking them their lives and their years away from their family. And it's like if you don't care enough to do it for yourself, because I didn't, do it for someone else like I did. I mean, I did it for the baby. In the beginning, it was just to make sure that she was healthy or the baby was healthy. But once it came out and I met her, I was just like, this is cool. And, I'm no saint. I fell. I fell for years here and there. I fell along the way. Um, but once I finally, so it does take sobriety is hard
Yeah.
and it takes a few years, but you can't stop. I
Mm.
mean, God's not going to close his door on you ever, ever. Um, but if you keep going back and doing the same things over and over and over and over, he's just going to sit back there and go, okay, okay. You let me know when you're serious about this because I'm done for now. And you won't hear from him. And that's just the way it's going to be. Or it's going to be hard for you to hear him
Right.
because you have so much more chaos and the enemy is keeping that voice from coming through. I often tell my mentors, give me three things that would be like the worst three things on earth that could ever, ever, ever happen to you.
Mm.
And then after they tell me those three things, not like, living through a tornado or something. I mean, I'm talking like devastatingly difficult. And
Right.
then I say, okay, if you continue down the life that you have and one of those three things were going to come to pass, would it be enough to get you to stop? Because it should. That should be enough.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's easy to say because it's like, well, that probably won't happen. Really? Can you predict the future? Because I sure can't.
Mhm.
How do you know? Do you know 100% without a doubt that one of those three things couldn't happen? Because if you can dream it up, it is actually possible.
Mhm.
So if you don't do it for you, do it for one of your three, whatever that three was. So that's my takeaway for those people struggling. It is real. It's real, but you have to, you know, don't continue to dig the well deeper.
Mhm. Excellent advice. It's something that we can all benefit from because and two, what popped into my head, not only is there so much wisdom in identifying the things that we relate to whatever it is we struggle with. And I'm going to put this out there. It doesn't have to be like a dramatic, big, life-changing addiction.
Yeah.
It
Mm-mm.
can be this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be anything. It can be
Yeah.
anything that keeps us from our families, keeps us from God. Because, like you said, there's so much chaos, there's so much noise that we have forgotten how to be quiet. And it's in the stillness that we hear the Lord. It's in those intentional moments where instead of thinking about things and being on our phones or listening to music or whatever, that we're actually quiet and still. Like, actually, there's no noise. And we're intentional and we're like, Lord, this is me just I'm just laying in bed right now until I fall asleep. But in these moments between me being awake right now and me being asleep, I want these to be moments that I have with you. Or in the day, some part of the day, it doesn't have to be the same time every day. Just be intentional. Give him 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. And anything feels hard at first when it's new and when you're not used to it. But we have got to be okay with being uncomfortable. We've got to be okay with denying our flesh. We have got to be okay with being quiet and being still with the Lord because you're right. You're absolutely right. If we don't break the cycle of whatever it is that we're giving power to, that it's going to keep repeating. We have to interrupt the cycle. And so, yeah, you take away the music, you take away the clothing, you take away the locations, even if it's something on its own harmless, because it's not harmless if it causes you to fall into an old rhythm. It's
Yes.
just deny it and accept the fact that that's not part of your life anymore. And I mean, I love my Christian music, but I'm in an era of Christian music where it's like it's fun and it's like got a good beat. Like we've got the best Christian music around these days.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yeah. I will say that.
I won't say that it's worship music necessarily, but it's
Mm.
good. It's like it reframes your mind. I find that a lot of the songs that are like the Christian songs these days help me reframe my mind and keep things in a proper perspective. And then there's music that actually is glorifying and worshiping God, and that's the stuff that we need to like give to Him. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. I don't know why I even said that, but
And I love Christian music now. So, and my husband listens to it a lot. And there's songs that will literally take me back. There's words that will
mm,
take me back to that bathroom, to that stained glass window where I was literally just, there. And I like that. I like going there. But you said something and it's true. Whoever's listening, it doesn't matter what it is.
mhm,
Um, whether it's food, whether it's anything. It could be anything.
mhm,
I gave up cereal for Lent one time just because I got to where I was eating so much cereal. And I'm like, this can't be even healthy.
Right.
And it's just little things that you say, I'm not so sure, shopping or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, Also, don't be so caught up like I was and being afraid to speak to somebody. I knew I needed a drastic measure. And so my first drastic measure was I called my OB-GYN's office. And when I called my OB's office, I said, oh, he's on vacation. And I said, okay, but I've been using drugs and I need help. And I mean, you can imagine the things every time I went to the doctor's office, he's like, honey, you're not gaining weight. Are you eating? Yeah, honey. It's like, but you're not gaining. I need you to gain a couple of pounds. You've got to gain some weight. Okay. And I wasn't. Well, I'm not gonna. And so when my next OB appointment came up, um, he went and he was old school. He actually retired not long after he had my baby. But he's like, what is this? And he's like, look, let me tell you something. He said, because I was set to have um, my birth and all my doings at the Margot Perot Center down in Dallas. And I had I had been approved right away for all the medical stuff, blah blah blah. And he's like, you can go to the city hospital and have your babies with all the other drug addicts.
Mhm.
And that that was one thing I knew was where I was headed. Right, I knew I was headed there, and I'm like, come hell or high water, that is not going to be me. So that would have been my sign for the three, right? And that I didn't want her to be taken from me, which is something that I had thought about also.
Right.
Um, but it doesn't matter what it is. Think about, even if it's, let's say it's food, it, what is that doing to your organs?
Yeah.
What is it doing to your family? What
Mhm.
they're seeing from you? They're watching you not take care of yourself. They love you,
Mhm.
but they can't maybe be around you anymore. Or, there's so many possible things that could be, right?
Mhm.
And we get caught up in this, I can't tell anybody, right? I can't, I can't go out in public looking like this. Or you wake up one day and you're 200 pounds more than you expected that, whatever. And I've seen it on shows. They're horrified with themselves.
Mhm.
And I was too. But you have to break the enemy's chain. You have to know that you are stronger. Excuse me.
Mhm.
You're stronger. We were given power over the devil. We were given power over that entity. And know that. Even if you don't know much about the Bible, you don't have to.
Mhm.
But what you do need to know is where your source of power comes from and who you have power over. And
Mhm.
if you can get, oh, look at me get chills. If you can get those two things, reach it, baby. Those two things, just those two things, that will help you. Because if you truly can believe that,
Mhm.
what's the worst that's going to happen? Somebody out there says something about you. Okay, let them wear your shoes for a day and then see what their attitude is. Let them come back to you in a month and see how they feel about you then, because it'll be different. And then you can say, you know what? Hmm, thanks for your thanks for your thoughts that I would get through this, or thanks for your encouragement. You know what I'm saying? I feel for some of these people sometimes, and I get frustrated with them because I'm like, what are you doing? What are you
Mhm.
thinking?
Mhm.
Come on.
Mhm.
And just like with the people that I mentor sometimes, when they don't call, I know, you know, um, things have gone wrong.
Mhm.
And I was that one. When things went wrong for me, everybody got turned off
Yeah.
because this side is turned on. and
Mhm.
you don't fit that mold and you got to go,
Mhm.
right? Then all of a sudden I got whatever and I'm doing good. And all of a sudden it's like, so happy, how's it going? No, I'm
Exactly.
back. And it doesn't matter at what point we get there. It's that we get there. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be done. I was even in the car recently going to Gatesville, which is where the women's penitentiary is. And my son called and he never calls me. And so I'm like, y'all, I gotta do this right quick, right? And I'm talking and he's just, chatting away and life is great. And I'm like, so is everything okay with you? Is everything good? He goes, yeah, why wouldn't it be? He's 26, he's a guy. And I'm like, okay, well, I love talking to you, but I'm in a car with women and we're on our way down, blah, blah, blah. And can I call you back? And I felt so bad because one, he hardly ever calls. But
Right.
then I'm like, okay, did the enemy put him up for that, knowing that we're trying to get ourselves collected? But also, part of the thing that we do with our ministry is we have people pray over us and our families,
Right.
because if the enemy can't attack us, they will attack a weaker person.
Exactly.
And
Right.
I always tell my mom that. I'm like, Mom, she's not who I worry about, but I tell her, be diligent, just be mindful of your surroundings and your activities,
Mhm.
because Satan knows,
Mhm.
if something's going to happen, he can do something with my family. But I have so many people that pray. We do a prayer chain, and
Mhm.
this prayer chain will go around a gym. And it's the old fashioned kindergarten pieces of paper.
Right.
But each prayer link, I think I sent you one time, but each prayer chain is just a piece of paper, a strip, and it's got the first name and the city, right? And we link those together. And then at one point during the program, at the very beginning, we come out with this chain and we talk about how people that don't know you are wishing you the best and are praying for you. And
Right.
they're watching this thing continue and continue and continue all around the room. And this is literally, they're just, and then they want to go read so and so in so and so, right? Oh my gosh, I know this town. I know my cousin lives in that town, or that's my sister's name. Or there's always connections on the chain, always. But that's how many people pray for us about the enemy. So I do not make light of the enemy, but um, if you can keep him in check and call him like it is, just like when I had breast cancer. I went through some phases where I was really sad at times, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna give this 5 minutes, and then you got to go, you know. And Lord, you come in and help me with my grieving.
Mhm.
Um, but we have to know those things, and I don't know where people that are new in their walk with Christ get some of that knowledge. I feel very blessed that by the time I had that come along, that I was prepared and I knew. I
Yeah.
mean, I knew what was going on and I could call it like it was. But I didn't know the chain around my ankle when I was trying to be saved. I didn't know about that. I learned about it later and I was like, that's really weird because I remember feeling this feeling.
Mhm.
That's what it was. And I had to learn to equate stuff, right? So even people that are listening, it's a progress. I was 32 before I was saved. So it's okay.
Yeah.
I've had moms ask me before, I want to go to a PTA meeting when I get out of here. I really just want to support my kids, but how would I even go to a PTA meeting? And I'm like, in your best dress with your high heel shoes, your makeup is going to be and your hair to the nines, and you are going to walk in like you own the place, and you're going to sit down on the front row and you're going to take notes. And she goes, I couldn't. And I said, why not? Your kids are that important, are they not? And she goes, well, yeah. And I said, fine. I said, if they have something to say, take your heel and say, you want to walk in my shoes for a week because you'll be giving them back. And they just laugh, right?
I thought you were
But
going to say and beat them over the head with it at first, but maybe that comes later.
Well, you're gonna want to. No violence. You can do that. You don't want to end up back in there again. But it's just, but they're so like, how do I do that with your head held high?
Mm.
Because they can't walk in your shoes. And it's just like, public speakers say, picture everybody in their underwear. It's that same basic concept or principle, right? Um, they don't know you, the real you. They may have known that you were arrested and went to jail. So what? Right now, I mean, honestly, in today's society, you find me 50 people in a room that haven't had at least 10 that will say, yes, I've been arrested even for a day for something. Um, and I'm probably way underestimating that. That's what the enemy does.
Mhm.
It says, oh man, it sucks to be you. You're the only one this has ever happened to. How can God like you? Look at what you're doing to yourself. How is your family? I have a fly or something on me. How is your family gonna want to be around? All those things. And that's where anxiety and depression and loneliness, and in my Bible study right now that I'm doing, um, I'll give my shout out. It's 52 weeks experiencing Jesus in 52 weeks. It's Max Lucado. It's super simple to reading. It's very easy read. And it's like 7 questions. I do it with a friend of mine in Arizona right now. But it's little things like we just read there's a prison. Everybody's in a prison. And it's the prison of want.
Mm.
I want a new car. I want a new job. I want a new this. I want to do that.
Mm.
And if you don't, you can come out and get on parole, but you're going to end up back in there if you can't figure out what got you there, right? And another one was about a parachute. And it's like the plane's fixing to drop, and I'm giving you a parachute, and they're like, can I have a different color? Can I have this? I don't want to be first, and it's like, dude, the plane's fixing to fall. And it's the same with God and his grace. It's like his grace. He can tell you at any point, my grace is enough. I don't have to. I don't have to. He doesn't. I mean, and that's the beauty of being loved that much, right? As his children, as the sheep. But gosh, dog, just the things that we do to ourselves sometimes. But I gave one to my kids recently, and I made them years and years ago, but I never gave them to them. So now that they're really older, they're like, why are you giving me this? So now I have little boxes, and inside the little box, I put some things. And basically, I put their superpowers, right? I put what their superpowers are in each one. So what I did is I wrapped it up, and I said, God, there was someone here, the riddle, and you may know it. Um, Somebody was walking into heaven, and as they were walking into heaven, they noticed these beautiful gold shelving with these like um, Neiman Marcus wrapped packages, right? Saks Fifth Avenue and um, you know, Buffet Schwartz and all the things, those beautifully wrapped packages. And then the person started seeing their names on packages. Whoa, are these all my gifts I get in heaven? They get to the gate and he's like, where are my gifts? He goes, oh, those gifts? No, those were the gifts that God had for you to give you while you were on earth,
Mhm.
and you never did want them. And the guy looks, he goes, really? All of these? But can I have them now? Goes, no, they're not going to be any use to you now. But we fail to see the magnitude of his love,
Mhm.
the magnitude of his power and his grace. And it doesn't matter what we go through, it matters where we get to.
That's good. That's good. I love that. That's yes, yes. All glory to God. Because when you were talking, it reminded me, and it might be obvious to some, but I love thinking about this. It's whose you are, not what you've done. And when we think about breaking old habits and old cycles and addictions and and getting out of our comfort zone, a lot of that, we have our identity wrapped up in that thing, whatever it is, if it's an addiction or if it's a way of life, a thing that we've gotten comfortable with. And when we start to shift that our identity is in Christ and who he says we are, instead of that thing that we do or that job that we have or the money that we make or whatever it is, that group of people we hang out with that validate us and tell us the things that we like to hear. And then we meet people like Lynette who tell us like it is, which I love. I love that you tell it like it is. But that's what we need. It's not what we want. But then the more you get, the closer you get to the Lord, the less these things, the desire fades. Because I've seen this in my own life. The closer that I've gotten with the Lord, the less I have wanted of the world, the less that these things that I used to enjoy, I used to find fascination with, or that were pleasurable to me, they've just lost. They've lost their interest for me. I don't want them, because that's Jesus. The more you get of him, the more you want of him. And in that faith walk, like you said, it's messy. It's okay that it's messy. It's going to be messy, and you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna fall back. We all do that. It's not about whether it happens. It's going to happen, and it's about just continuing and moving forward.
You never know what is the door, you
Mm,
know, what is the gift he's trying to give you, where he's going to show up. And oh, he's never going to do that for me. Oh, I can't go to that church. And I've heard horror stories of people in churches that won't let people come in.
mhm,
Um, but that's not who my Jesus is.
mm-mm, mm-mm.
Um, and there's a place for you. And just like with her, there was a place for her. She's someone I volunteer with. And she had actually been incarcerated. And when the girls that are inside heard this story, because the first thing she said was, "Hi, my name is this, and my TCJ number is blah, blah, blah." And they went, and, because now you really relate, right? You're seriously one of us.
Mhm.
And that was her story, is that when I did get out and I got into, went to a church, they told me that they would rather I worship online or wherever. No, 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 no. You
Mm-mm.
know, Poor them,
Yeah, that's
because she's an amazing person and she has amazing stories. She has a beautiful personality and she just wants to worship and be one of God's children. She just wants to be a sheep.
mhm, mhm.
Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. We are all sheep. We're all in there. And, he without a blemish, let you cast the first stone.
Go ahead. Yeah.
They need to be reminded.
Mhm.
So don't be discouraged when something happens that in your heart of hearts shouldn't be, because it probably isn't. But don't let someone else's stupidity be a crutch to keep you down.
Yeah.
Don't say, okay, well, I might as well give up because, this is the way it's going to be. No, the enemy's jacking with you and, call it like it is and put on your big girl pants and let's keep going.
Just move
Put
on.
on your
Next
big girl
church.
bitches. And,
You can't throw a
yeah,
stone around here without hitting a church. Just go to the next one. Just find the next one.
right. Because there's lots out there. And the reason there are so many is because there's so many of us and there's so many that we can pick and choose, just like restaurants. How it is.
Is there anything that you haven't touched on that you want to share or?
No, other than just, the details. And it's just people saw, I think, signs because I hid it so well, but there were signs and people didn't want to see the signs or they didn't want to admit the signs. If you think there might be someone that that might be having an issue with whatever it is, love them enough to speak out.
Mhm.
Love them enough. If they hate you, then they probably weren't crazy about you to begin with, but at least you've gotten it off your chest. And what you don't want is for something serious to happen. And then you hold that yourself hostage because you didn't speak up.
This was such a blessing. It was a blessing for me. I'm sure it was a blessing for everyone listening. Is there any final thoughts that you would like to share before we sign off?
I don't think so. Just, pray if you don't know what to do. I mean, and if you feel like you can't go to anyone like I did, pray. He's always got his channel and your channel connected.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you may not hear him always, but that doesn't mean he is a great silent partner. So just because you don't hear stuff like I've said times that I've literally heard him speak, and you're expecting that, it may not be time for you to hear that, or you may not experience it the same way I did. And don't take anybody's story and feel like it has to mesh to yours because it's not your story.
Right.
Yours is going to be different, and your story may end up being, I did this thing even though I felt like doing it, even though I never really heard any, you know what I'm saying? So, um, don't give up. Um, don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
It's so worth the results to be truly happy. And if it's your dream for success, it's probably his dream too.
Mm. And I will add to that, be intentional with your prayer because the Lord wants us to be specific. Those gifts that he wants to give us, those graces that he wants to pour out on us, be intentional. Tell him exactly what you're wanting. And then I am confident that you will see. You may not always get your prayer answered the way you want because that's not how it works. That's not how it works. We all know this, but you will see him show up. And to me, that's what matters because we pray for things we think we need, and he knows what we need.
Well, thank you for letting me share my story, Sam. I really appreciate it. And I wish everyone that's listening, no matter at what point in their journey and at what point in time, I wish you luck. I wish you success. And I wish you a blessed, blessed journey.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It's worth the fight to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And reach out to someone.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're okay with it, Lynette, I'd like to let them put their Facebook or your email. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, they can reach out to you directly. And then I'll also include all of my links. Of course, y'all got all my stuff, but it'll be there, and you can always reach out to me for prayer requests or anything like that. But yeah, thank you all so much. Thank you, Lynette. You've been such a blessing. Thank you for saying yes to God and for being here.
You're welcome, Sam, and thanks for doing this program. It's great. It really is. It really is a blessing.
All right. Y'all have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time. Bye.